That night, Dicka had just moved into a small rented house on the outskirts of the city. It was simple, 2 rooms, a living area, and a tiny kitchen. But there was something odd about it. In the main bedroom, one wall looked different. The paint was newer, smoother, and when Dicka knocked on it, it sounded hollow. He thought nothing of it at first. Maybe it was just a patch-up job from the last tenant. But on the 3rd night, things began to change. Just as he was about to fall asleep, Dicka heard something. Not rats, not whined. It was a whisper. "You can hear me, can't you?" Dicka sat up instantly. He turned on the light and pressed his ear to the wall. Silence. Then, the whisper came again, clearer this time. "Help me." It was faint, desperate, and definitely coming from inside the wall. Dicka slammed his palm against it. "Who's there?" No reply. Only 3 knocks in return. Tock, tock, tock. The next morning, Dicka called a handyman to inspect it, but the man refused to touch the wall. He said the house had been sealed off years ago, after a woman disappeared inside. That night, the voice returned, but now it wasn't whispering, it was crying, sobbing, begging. When Dicka finally fell asleep, he dreamed of a woman dressed in white, trapped behind the wall, scratching to get out, her fingers bleeding, her eyes hollow. He woke up drenched in sweat and saw long claw marks across the wall, as if something had tried to tear its way through. Panicking, Dicka rushed to the door, but before he could open it, a breath brushed against his ear. "You've woken me up." The lights flickered, then died, and from behind the hollow wall, footsteps began to walk out. Dicka never went back to that house. He spent the night at a friend's apartment, trying to convince himself that what happened was just a dream. But the scratches on his arm said otherwise. Thin, red lines, the same pattern as the marks on the wall. For days, Dicka tried to move on, but every night, at exactly 3:07 a.m., he heard it again. A faint knock, 3 times. Talk, and sometimes your voice. "Why did you leave me there?" He unplugged his phone, turned off the Wi-Fi, even moved to another room. But the sound followed him, through walls, through doors, through silence itself. One night, while half asleep, Dicka opened his eyes and saw a shadow standing in the corner. It wasn't moving, it wasn't breathing, just watching. The air turned cold, his breath turned white. He whispered shakily, "What do you want from me?" The shadow moved closer, and in the dim light of the street lamp, he saw a woman's face, pale, cracked, and smiling too wide. "You heard me. Now you must let me out." Dicka screamed and ran out of the room. When he looked back, the corner was empty, but on the wall, written in what looked like blood, were the words, "You took my place." The next morning, Dicka's friend came to check on him. The door was locked from the inside. When they broke it open, the room was empty. No sign of Dicka. Only one thing remained, a freshly built wall, with wet cement still dripping down the edges, and if you knock on it 3 times, you'll hear someone knocking back. 2 weeks after Dicka vanished, the landlord rented out the house again. The new tenant, a young woman named Rena, knew nothing about what had happened before. The place looked clean, freshly painted, almost too clean, especially the bedroom wall. It was smooth, cold, and when she tapped it, tock, 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 hollow. The landlord warned her not to hang anything there, but Rena didn't listen. That night, she nailed a small mirror onto the wall. The sound echoed strangely, like knocking on a coffin. At around 3:07 a.m., Rena woke up. She felt something like someone was watching her. In the mirror, she saw a faint reflection of a man standing behind her, but when she turned around, no one was there. She whispered, "Hello." Silence. Then the mirror cracked by itself. From the cracks, a whisper came out. "Help me." Rena froze. The voice was muffled, like it came from behind the wall. She leaned closer. "Who are you?" "Dicka." The voice sounded weak. She had never heard that name before. Suddenly, a bloody handprint appeared on the mirror's surface, pressed from inside the glass. Rena stumbled back, terrified. The light flickered, and through the cracked mirror, she saw something, a woman's face, staring right at her, half of it rotting, half still beautiful. "He's with me now," the woman whispered. "Do you want to join him?" The mirror shattered completely, and from the hollow wall came a scream so loud, it didn't sound human. The next morning, the neighbors complained about a horrible smell coming from the house. When the police arrived, Rena was gone. All they found was a new mirror, perfectly clean, and in its reflection, 2 figures standing behind them, watching. After Rena disappeared, the house was sealed once again. Neighbors said the smell never truly went away. It always returned at night, mixed with something worse, a whisper through the cracks. Months later, a journalist named Ardan heard rumors about the haunted rental house that swallowed its tenants. He didn't believe in ghosts. He only believed in stories, and this one could make him famous. When he entered the house, the air was thick with dust. Everything looked untouched, except the bedroom wall. Someone had painted over it again, and in the faint reflection of his flashlight, Ardan saw it, a face, trapped beneath the paint. He stepped closer. The wall felt cold, like touching metal in winter. Then, a soft, rhythmic sound. Tock, tock, tock. Is someone there? He asked. A pause. Then a whisper answered. Don't let her out. The voice was a man's, trembling, weak. Ardan's heart raced. Who are you? Dicka, please. She's not human. Before Ardan could respond, the light flickered and died. The air turned freezing, and from behind the wall came another voice, sweet and sharp, like glass cutting through air. He promised me forever. The wall began to move, bulging outward as if something inside was pushing to get free. Cracks spread across the surface. Hands, pale, bloody hands clawed through the paint. Ardan dropped his camera and ran for the door, but the door wouldn't open. The knob turned, but something was holding it shut from the other side. Behind him, a whisper brushed against his ear. You opened it again. The last thing his recorder captured was a single, terrified breath, followed by the sound of wet concrete being poured. The next morning, the police found the house sealed tight. Fresh cement. No trace of Ardan. But inside the wall, if you listen closely, you can hear 3 voices whispering now. Help us. She's coming. You're next. The police closed the case again, calling it unexplained structural collapse. But one of the officers, Sergeant Myra, couldn't let it go. She had been the first on the scene, and she swore she heard voices behind the sealed wall. Not echoes, whispers. At night, she started dreaming about that house. In her dreams, she was walking through endless hallways of concrete, and from every wall came faint knocking. Tock, tock, tock. Always 3 times. Always at 3:07 a.m. After a week of sleepless nights, she returned to the house alone. The seal was still fresh, the air cold and heavy. She brought her flashlight, her gun, and the voice recorder she'd taken from Ardan's camera bag. When she played the recording, the static filled the air. Then came Ardan's voice. Who are you? Dicka, she's not human. Crackling noises. She said her name was Liana. The audio cut off. Myra froze. Liana. She recognized that name. Years ago, a woman named Liana Rahman had gone missing right after buying this property with her fiancé. According to reports, she was renovating the house when she disappeared inside a wall during construction. They never found her body. Myra's flashlight flickered. Something moved behind the wall, like a shadow crawling just under the surface. Then she heard it. Myra. The whisper came from inside the wall. Her blood ran cold. Liana, he left me here. The wall began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling. Cracks opened, revealing something behind it. Through the dust, Myra saw a woman's face, half buried in cement. Eyes open, lips moving. He sealed me alive. Suddenly, another voice, deeper, desperate, echoed behind her. It was Dicka. Don't talk to her. She'd take your name. Myra turned, but there was no one there. Only shadows moving in the corners. When she looked back at the wall, the face was gone, but new words had appeared, written in blood. Now she remembers you. The flashlight went out, and in the darkness, Myra heard a whisper, right beside her ear. You came to free me. Now you'll stay with me. The recorder fell to the ground, and the last sound it captured was the slow, steady rhythm of wet cement being poured once again. A month after Sergeant Myra disappeared, the house was no longer empty. Neighbors started hearing strange sounds at night, breathing, slow and heavy, as if the house itself had lungs. Sometimes, they said, it exhaled. Windows fogged up from the inside. Doors opened and closed even when nailed shut. And every night at 3:07 a.m., something whispered through the walls. Are you still there, Myra? No one dared to enter, until a team of paranormal investigators from a YouTube channel called Night Seekers arrived. 3 members, Leo, Hannah, and Chris. They thought it would make perfect viral content. 24 hours in the most haunted house in Indonesia. The moment they stepped in, the air felt alive. The floorboards throbbed softly beneath their feet, like a slow heartbeat. Chris joked nervously. Bro, it's like the house is breathing. Leo laughed, until he saw his breath fog in the air. It is, Hannah whispered. They set up cameras and began exploring. In the bedroom, the wall looked different again. Fresh paint, smooth and wet to the touch. But when Hannah brushed her hand across it, the surface shivered. She froze. Did you see that? From behind the wall came faint tapping. 3 times. Tock, tock, tock. Leo knocked back, grinning. Classic haunting, he said. But when he pulled his hand away, there were finger marks pressed into his skin, deep red, like something had grabbed him from the other side. The room temperature dropped. All their cameras flickered. And then, through every microphone, came the same voice. He sealed me alive. He sealed all of us. Hannah screamed, "Turn it off." But the recorders wouldn't stop. Every device in the room started playing overlapping whispers. Dika, Myra, Ardan, Liana, all calling out at once. "Get out. She's awake. She's breathing." Then the house exhaled. A deep, low sound like whine through lungs. The lights exploded, and the walls began to move, expanding and contracting like ribs. Chris dropped the camera, shouting, "It's alive! The house, it's alive!" But by the time rescuers arrived the next morning, the building was silent again. No sign of the night seekers. Only 3 faint handprints left on the wall, one small, one large, one smeared. And when the wind passed through the cracks, the house seemed to whisper, "I need more air." Before the house was built, before anyone disappeared inside it, there was the architect. His name was Raman Santoso, a quiet man, famous for his beautiful but unsettling designs. Locals said his houses never felt empty, even when no one lived in them. They said his walls could listen. Years ago, he began construction on what he called the breathing house. He claimed it was designed to mimic life. No one understood what he meant, not even his fiancée, Liana. But during construction, something went wrong. Workers complained that the walls moved at night. Some quit after hearing whispers from inside the cement. Then, one morning, Raman arrived at the site and found Liana gone. Only her wedding ring remained, embedded inside the unfinished wall. Police ruled it an accident, but Raman never explained why he sealed that part of the house himself, or why he used human ashes mixed into the cement. After her disappearance, Raman stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Neighbors said they heard him talking to the walls, whispering apologies, sometimes shouting, until one night, he walked inside the house, and never came out again. Decades later, when investigators dug into the original blueprints, they found something disturbing. The structure of the house formed the shape of a human chest cavity. The vents were placed where lungs would be, and in the center of the design, hidden between 2 support beams, was a handwritten note. "Every wall needs a heart, and she is mine." That's when they realized Liana wasn't trapped in the house. She was the house. Every person who entered, every soul who died within, became part of her structure. Brick by brick, breath by breath, the house was feeding, growing, alive. Now, local authorities have fenced the property off, but those who pass by at night say they can still hear the sound of breathing, soft and steady. And if you listen closely, you can hear a woman's voice, whispering through the cracks, "He made me live forever." Months passed after the government sealed the house for good, but people still came. Paranormal thrill seekers, filmmakers, believers. None of them lasted more than a night. Then came Dr. Farid, a structural engineer hired to demolish what remained of the building. He didn't believe in ghosts, only in concrete, gravity, and logic. But when he read the blueprints, he found something strange. A section of the foundation was missing from the records. A chamber beneath the floor that wasn't supposed to exist. Probably old drainage, he muttered. But curiosity won. He ordered his crew to dig under the living room, right where the floorboards had always felt warm. After 3 meters, they hit something solid, not rock, flesh. The workers screamed and ran, but Farid stayed. It wasn't possible. The texture looked like muscle, pulsing slowly, faintly glowing red. And then he heard it. A heartbeat. Steady, heavy, alive. Thump, thump, dot, 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 thump. Farid stumbled backward. No, it can't be. Then, from the walls around him, came the voices. All of them. Dika, Myra, Ardan, Hannah. Hundreds of whispers overlapping. Pleading, crying. "Help us. She's inside the heart. Don't wake her." But it was too late. The heartbeat grew louder. The ground trembled, and the muscle beneath the floor split open, revealing a massive, wet cavity pulsing with light. In its center was a human shape, curled up and breathing, skin gray, veins glowing red. It was Liana. She opened her eyes. They weren't human anymore. "You came to destroy me," she whispered, her voice echoing through the walls. "But you're only feeding me." The walls started to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Concrete cracked. Wood snapped. The entire house began to breathe faster. Farid tried to escape, but every door melted into the walls. The last thing seen on his camera was the floor swallowing him whole, and the faint sound of a heartbeat slowing down again. Thump, thump, dot, 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 thump. The next morning, the construction site was gone. In its place stood a new building, clean and modern, with a for sale sign out front. And if you put your ear to the floor, you can still hear it, breathing. 3 months after the demolition, the property was rebuilt, a modern 2-story house with white walls, glass windows, and clean lines. To the world, it was brand new. But beneath the polished floors, the heart still beat. A young couple, Evan and Clara, bought it without hesitation. It was cheap, beautiful, and close to the city. They moved in with their 6-year-old daughter, Naya, on a quiet Sunday afternoon. At first, everything was perfect. The air was warm. The walls smelled of fresh paint. But that night, Naya said something strange. "Mommy, the house is sleeping." "What do you mean?" Clara asked. "I can hear it breathing." They laughed, thinking it was just a child's imagination. But as the days passed, Clara began to notice it too. Late at night, when everything was silent, the walls seemed to move ever so slightly, expanding and contracting, like lungs. Evan blamed the new plumbing. He didn't want to admit that the floor felt warm, especially in the living room. Then one morning, Naya's drawings changed. She used to draw flowers and cats. Now she drew the house. Always the same. Walls with eyes, a door like a mouth, and something red beneath the floorboards. When Clara asked who told her to draw that, Naya whispered, "The lady downstairs." "There's no downstairs, honey," Clara said. But Naya only smiled. She said there will be soon. That night, Evan woke to a sound, tock, tock, tock. 3 knocks from inside the wall. He followed it to the living room. The floor was trembling softly, as if something beneath was trying to breathe. When he leaned down to listen, he heard it, a heartbeat, slow, deep, alive. Then, faintly, a whisper through the floorboards, "Welcome home." The lights flickered. Naya appeared in the doorway, half asleep, holding her doll. "She says you're part of the house now, Daddy." Evan's breath caught. "Who said that?" Naya tilted her head. "Liana." The floor cracked open just slightly beneath his feet, enough to let out a warm, living pulse. The house sighed, like it was waking up again. Days passed, and the house grew louder. The hum behind the walls became a steady pulse, echoing through the pipes and floorboards. Clara stopped sleeping. Evan started hearing voices whispering his name when he was alone. Only Naya seemed calm. She spent hours sitting on the living room floor, humming to the rhythm of the heartbeat. One evening, Evan decided he'd had enough. He brought a hammer, determined to open the wall and prove there was nothing inside. But as soon as he struck it, the house shuddered as if it felt pain. Thumper, thumper, thump. The heartbeat quickened. Naya covered her ears. "Daddy, you're hurting her." Evan froze. "Hurting who?" "The lady who lives inside," she whispered. "She says you took her place." The lights flickered. Cracks spread across the ceiling like veins. And for the first time, the air began to move, flowing in and out slow, rhythmic, alive. The house was breathing again. Clara grabbed Naya and ran for the front door. It opened, but beyond it was only darkness, no street, no trees, no sky, just endless black. From every direction came the same voice. "He gave me life. Now I will live through you." The floor rose beneath their feet like a heartbeat. Evan tried to pull them back, but the house exhaled a long, heavy sigh that blew out every light. When the silence returned, only one sound remained, a small child's humming, coming from somewhere deep inside the walls. Weeks later, real estate agents listed the property again. New paint, new floors, same low price. They said it was just a house. But every night at 3:07 a.m., the lights in its windows flicker, in perfect rhythm, with the sound of something breathing beneath the floor. A month after the last owners vanished, the property agent finally found a potential buyer, a man named Julian, quiet, polite, a collector of rare architecture. He said he'd heard rumors about the breathing house, and he wanted to see it for himself. The agent hesitated, but money spoke louder than fear. So one gray afternoon, they met at the front gate. The key turned smoothly, as if the door had been waiting. Inside, the air was still and warm. Julian walked from room to room, running his hand along the walls. He smiled. "It's remarkable," he murmured. "The structure feels alive." The agent forced a laugh. "That's just how the locals talk." Julian crouched in the center of the living room, pressed his palm to the floor, and closed his eyes. He whispered something in a language the agent didn't recognize. For a moment, the house seemed to breathe back. The agent stepped away. "Sir, are you all right?" Julian stood, eyes distant. "Yes, I'm more than all right. It's listening." He opened his briefcase and took out a roll of old paper blueprints, yellowed with age. The agent glanced at the name on the corner, Arsantoso. Julian smiled wider. I've been looking for my father's masterpiece. The heartbeat began slow, deep, familiar. The walls trembled gently. Dust drifted down like ash. Julian whispered to the floor, "I'm home, Mother." And for the first time since the house was rebuilt, the light stayed on, glowing a faint, steady red. Night fell quickly that day. The street outside the house seemed to fade away until only the dim glow of its windows remained. Julian sat alone in the living room, studying the old blueprints by candlelight. The drawings were strange. No doors, no windows, only veins drawn across the paper. At the center, in faded ink, was a name, Liana. He traced the lines with his finger and whispered, "You were his creation, but you were my mother." The floor responded with a deep, low pulse. Dust fell from the ceiling like breath. The air around him grew heavy, warm, alive, aware. Julian smiled faintly. "You've waited long enough." He placed his hand against the wall. It felt soft, like skin. For a moment, he thought he heard a heartbeat beneath his palm. Two heartbeats. One faint, one strong. Then a whisper brushed his ear. "Welcome back, my son." The candles flickered out. In the dark, the blueprint on the floor began to glow. Faint red lines spreading across the paper like roots. They stretched toward the walls, the floor, the ceiling, connecting everything. Julian didn't move. He simply whispered, "It's time to finish what he started." From the shadows of the hallway came the sound of small footsteps. A child's voice, a distant, familiar, began to hum the same tune Naya once did. The walls expanded softly, exhaled, and then the heartbeat returned, louder than before, steady, alive. The breathing house had found its blood again. The night stretched long and silent. Outside, the neighborhood slept, but inside the house, time moved differently. The walls pulsed faintly, glowing from within like a heartbeat buried under plaster. Julian stood in the center of the living room, the blueprints floating gently on the warm air. "You were never just a building," he whispered. "You were his obsession, his prison, and now, you're awake." The house groaned softly, as if answering. The lines of light from the blueprint climbed the walls, filling every corner with a soft red glow. Images flickered on the surfaces, faces, trapped and fading. Evan, Clara, Naya, and the original architect, Arsantoso. Julian's voice trembled. "Father, what did you do to her?" From the shadows, a figure appeared, faint, shimmering, like smoke. A man with hollow eyes and ink-stained hands. "I tried to save her," the ghost said, "but the house wanted more. It needed to live." Julian stepped closer. "Then let it live through me." The air thickened. The heartbeat grew faster. Cracks raced up the walls, and the floor rose and fell like a chest breathing for the last time. A whisper rolled through the house. Thousands of voices, layered and trembling. One life for another. Julian placed his hand over his heart. "Take it." The candlelight flared, then vanished. Silence. When morning came, the house stood perfectly still. No sound, no pulse, no sign of life. Only one thing had changed on the living room wall. A faint handprint had appeared, and beside it, a small child's drawing of a happy family standing in front of a house with a smiling face. Weeks later, neighbors swore they could still hear humming from inside. Soft, rhythmic, peaceful, like the house was finally dreaming.